All right, this is the August 14th, 2018 Rook Community Meeting. And as Alex was saying, he's got a flight to catch, so we will go ahead and jump to Alex's topics first so that he can get those out of the way before he flies into the sky. Alex, what do you got for us?
Yeah, so the first point is to add the Rook to the Ranger catalog. I kind of stumbled across the issue after some time again and was more or less wondering if the people, the community of Rook is, still interested in adding Rook to the Ranger catalog. As I personally don't see it as a bad thing to do like that. I see it more as also an opportunity for Rook to, get more audience by simply adding them to a catalog. If someone could take that from me.
Do we have much of an idea of the development cost for this? Is this a whole lot of integration effort, or is it like fill out a form and it shows up there?
I think at least from looking at what Dan wrote, it seems to only be either having like the Helm charts slightly modified or something, and then adding an entry in a repository or somewhere, or simply getting in touch with somebody from Ranger. But I would need to get myself informed.
So we don't have a very clear idea of the process yet. Got it. And has there been? So this is a very old issue. This is almost a year old now. Has there been recent demand that anyone has heard about this, just out of curiosity? I don't think it's a bad idea to do this, but I'm curious if there has been any recent demand.
I'm not sure about the recent demand, but just based on the 19 likes there, that's pretty high for one of our issues. So I can't tell how recent those are, of course.
And a heart too.
And a heart. From that perspective, it looks like a very interesting thing for people.
Cool. So, Alex, did you say that you would take a look to see what it would take to be added to that catalog, so we just get a better sense? Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, if you could follow up on that, then I'm sure that I don't have any problem with this, but it would be good to know that. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you had another issue, Alex, that you wanted to talk about before you have to catch your plane?
Yeah, so the second point you just marked is Luca Bogdan, I think it was. Oh, no, you marked the third one. Okay. So the second one that I talked to you, Jared, Luca Bogdan, I saw him in a meeting, so he can probably talk about that later on. And yeah, at the third point now.
Yes.
That came up from the user Giaote. I don't know how to spell it. And yeah, it's basically kind of a feature request to further increase the possibilities, the placement possibilities of the Asian and Discovery daemons. The users in that case are, for example, only want to run the Discovery agents on certain nodes. But with the kind of current aspect, they would run everywhere, but only not run on, or especially also run on nodes with taints. And the user wants to have a certain node affinity with labels and stuff like that, like the normal placement spec we have in the CLD, cluster CLD and stuff like that.
Yeah, all the other daemons support more flexible placement, so it'd be nice if those daemons could also support the same flexibility.
Yes.
Do we already have a GitHub issue that's tracking this?
That's why we had it yesterday. I could have sworn there is one, but I haven't found it till today, so I think we should just go ahead, create a new one, and yeah, document it there. Because they're kind of at least what Jared and me talked about yesterday. We kind of, at least I more or less with Jared there, found two ways right now. For the first one is that the agent and discovery is deployed manually, kind of added to the operator YAML as a daemon set there, or that we have like a config map, which isn't generally used for specific customization settings as a YAML struct in a config map, which is then read by the Rook operator. which then, for example, contains placement spec or I don't know, other options like for the discovery, how often it will happen and stuff like that. Yeah, that are, at least from my engineer's perspective right now, is like two ways that we could follow.
And Alex, this is something that you had seen the community talking about, like on Slack and stuff too, right? There had been demand from users for this type of functionality.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so we can go ahead and follow up to make sure that an issue is tracking this. And when we talked about this yesterday, Alex, I also was under the belief that there was already an issue tracking it, but I was not able to find it either. So we'll go ahead and follow up to get an issue on that. I'll do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And Alex, did you have any other things? What's that? Alex?
Lost him.
I guess this plane took off. All right. Yeah, Alex, if you can't hear us, just let us know if you had more issues you needed to talk about before you're taking off to Berlin. All right.
Guess
so
he's gone.
Yep, let's move back to the top of the list here. I see a chat too. That could be Alex.
He says
nothing else. Have a good meeting.
All right.
All right. Have a good life, Alex. Well, why constrain ourselves to just a good meeting? Let's have good lives as well. All right. So let's take a look at the project boards too and do a checkup there. So 0.8, I have not looked at the latest status on this. Travis, do you have anything to update us on for the 0.8? Any minor release board here?
With 1733, so Alex, I believe the latest on that, he has a PR open for this. It's sort of it's really a minor feature work to get the erasure code working for block storage. Yeah, it's looking good. He was just going to make a couple more updates, I think. So it's not quite done yet. I haven't seen, or I'm not sure I've seen real urgency for this to be in 0.8. So I'm wondering if it would have been nice, I guess, if Alex was still on to discuss. But is it really needed in 0.8? Maybe is the next question. If it's the only issue that we need to get in. So that, I think when Alex is back, it'd be good to talk to him.
I also kind of feel like I'm in the same boat there, Travis, that, spinning up a release for this, doing a patch release does not necessarily feel justified to me.
Right. Yeah. And anyway, yeah, if there's demand for it, great. I'm not sure I've heard a lot of it to really justify it for 0.8.
Yeah, by itself, especially.
Right. So then 1921, I just added a reference to a comment from Fabian, who was investigating this issue. So he found that in OpenShift and containerized deployments, that this is where this hits, and it looks like a fix or workaround is needed on the OpenShift side. And so what this is a documentation issue now that he's going to submit a PR for soon.
And that's essentially like the fix there is to enable mount propagation in the OpenShift environment. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. Yeah. And so that will be a documentation only change?
Yeah, to make sure people are configuring OpenShift correctly.
Got it. And then to be in the 0.8 docs, they would need to be backported, right? So that's why it would be on this board still.
Yeah, so it'd still be good to have on the board or on the docs update, but it won't require release since the docs.
Right. We will not have to create a patch release. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay. That sounds good to me then. I'm fine with that. Yeah, that was a lot of investigation that poor Fabian had to do.
Right.
I hope he's still got some hair left. That sounded pretty gnarly to get to that conclusion.
Pulling it all out. Yep.
Yeah. All right. So that's it for the 0.8 board. And let's go ahead and take a look at the 0.9 milestone. So we're obviously pretty early on in this milestone. So let's actually take a quick look here to at the roadmap, because I think we updated the roadmap since the last community meeting, I believe. So let's talk about that right quick. So so the Rook roadmap has been updated. The approach here is that we are being fairly aggressive with the 0.9 milestone. There's a lot of big features and exciting features here in the 0.9 milestone that we'd like to get in, but there's a fair amount of them that do not necessarily have owners for yet. So we're hoping that we can generate a little bit of excitement here in the community and get some new owners attached to some of these features to be able to deliver on them. But there's a realistic possibility that not everything that's currently in the 0.9 milestone on the roadmap will be included in the 0.9 milestone that we ship. So, hopefully maybe some people on this call can take a look at this roadmap and get excited about some of these features that we want to be including. So I think that we also, at the same time, have done a thorough job of including all of these issues from the roadmap into the milestone itself. So I believe this milestone, as captured in GitHub, is complete and thorough. Would you say that to be the case as well, Travis?
That all the issues are in 0.9 that
Yeah.
planned? I made a pass through it, the best I know of. I'm not sure it's exhaustive yet, but I believe so.
Awesome. So at this stage, we're pretty much only at the point where, we want to make sure we have the themes defined and the goals defined, and from a project tracking perspective, we have all the issues included in the milestone, and that's about it for what we have at this point right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a bunch of things on this board. I don't think we necessarily need to be talking about every single issue right now, because we're not anywhere close to converging to having everything completed and shipping this release. But if there's anything on the board here that somebody wants to bring up right now for a discussion, then the floor is absolutely open for that.
Yeah, well, I've got a couple of PRs open that I wanted to bring up just so people are aware, and also to get feedback on.
Did you and you had them in this section?
Discuss, so we can build in if you want, but
yeah, that's fine.
Hey, Jared, do we have help wanted labels on the ones that definitely don't have owners?
We have done a decent job of including help wanted in the past, but I think that might have been something that was overlooked, Bassam, recently here when we did this big milestone push. So I will follow up on that again to make sure that we've got those tagged, because that's something that we want to keep a good handle on.
Mm-hmm.
Hey there, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I'm Bogdan Luca. Alexander said something about me earlier.
Yes, I know your name, Bogdan. Thank you for
joining. Okay, so yeah, I'm interested to work on the set volume issue.
Yeah, that is awesome.
I don't know if you saw, I added a comment to the issue with like some manual preparing of a partition and adding it to an existing cluster.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I just like wanted to play with it a bit and learn how it's working.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
But I would probably need some guidance on the Rook part. So
yeah, definitely will be glad to work together.
Whoever wants to.
I know, is Dan on the call? Dan Mick looks like he commented on that issue before. He's looked into this a bit, so maybe it'd be good to sync up with him. And
I just needed like an overview, like how all the pieces fit together, like the discovery, the preparing of an OSD, So yeah, I don't have a clear image of how everything works together.
Mm-hmm.
This actually is a good reminder to update the design section the design docs that we have in Rook after 0.8. I don't think we've gone through and updated kind of architecture and what all the components are and all that.
Yeah, there is a design doc around OSDs that changed for
Yeah,
0.8. So
I'm thinking
I was
about the
just going to
overall
send.
one with the diagram that shows the whole overall thing. It still seems out of date now.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the intent there, especially for an audience of new contributors to the repo that want to understand how things are laid out and how the components of the system interact with each other, so they can have a better, have more confidence when they're diving into the code itself. There's a lot of value in that, especially as we're trying to attract new contributors to take on some of these features in 0.9.
Yeah, for example, I didn't really get like what the discovery is for, because I have my storage nodes were tainted, and the discovery wasn't running on them, but when adding a cluster, it just worked. So it seemed like the discovery is not really needed.
Okay, I just added a link to the design doc for around discovery and OSDs.
Okay.
We'll follow up.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to. We can talk after that.
Yeah, in general, Bogdan, we are we're always happy to have new contributors, working on features in the project here, and we're happy to provide the support that we can probably on the dev channel to talk about what the architecture is, or give you the resources you need to be able to effectively write code and test code for Rook. So we're always happy to do that, and thank you very much for your enthusiasm about it.
Yeah, I don't know if it will be long term, because I need it for another project. So
yeah.
But yeah, it's I think it's a very, very nice project, and if I have time in the future, I can get involved as
Awesome.
much as I can.
Yeah, so we'll keep talking on the dev channel on Slack then to keep
sure
going.
Perfect.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Very much.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so I think that concludes everything we want to say about 0.9 in general, so we can go ahead and move on to the next topics, I believe. So one thing I wanted to say to start off here with the discussion about community topics is that Rohan is, he has been working as part of the Google Summer of Code program all summer on adding NFS, network file system support to Rook. And just yesterday, or last night to today, is his final project deadline and evaluation that he has completed. So Rohan is just about all done with his Google Summer of Code effort for us, and NFS support will be merged into master probably today, I believe. So I wanted to thank Rohan for all of his efforts this summer for us, and he's a great addition to the community and as a contributor to the project. So thank you a lot, Rohan, for all your work this summer, man.
Yep, welcome, Jared. So I couldn't have done it without you and Travis. Thanks for your help.
Yeah, it's been great to work with you, and continue working on Rook right after this.
Yep, sure.
Yeah, you already know so much about the code base, and you're a useful contributor. So you can't get rid of us after this too easily.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good stuff, man. So then, okay, so we talked about adding Rook to Rancher. We just talked about this with Bogdan, and we talked about this. Travis, I believe your PRs.
We're down to the PRs.
We are able to talk about those now.
Cool. Good design discussion to be had here. So some challenges we've had with orchestrating stuff is that if there are features under active development, in Ceph, those features will be on the latest version of Ceph. Can you hear me okay?
It's kind of cutting in and out a little bit for you.
Internet connection is unstable here.
Did they just get internet out there in Idaho?
Looking to see if there's something I need to stop. Okay, well, I'll try and turn off Anycube, but that shouldn't affect it. Any yet? No. We'll try it now.
Is it raining there?
It is not raining. It's sunny.
Yeah, it seems okay right now.
Seems better?
Yeah, it seems good.
Okay, let's try this. It'll tell me if I start cutting out again.
Okay.
So a couple of challenges with the version of Ceph, which is tied to Rook right now. It's the version of Ceph. It's embedded in the Rook image. It's Luminous. Luminous 12.2.7 today, and had a number of areas where it's like, oh, we want to run on Mimic, or we want to run even on Nautilus for future development, and get Rook to be ready for Nautilus when it ships. And so that's the first issue. And then the second issue is that administrators want, in important clusters, production clusters, they want to control what version of their data path is running. And Rook being the orchestrator could, if it's separated from the Ceph version, Rook can be upgraded more aggressively whenever Rook releases, but Ceph doesn't need to be updated whenever Rook is updated. So the idea is, if we split or decouple the version of Ceph from Rook, the admin can make decisions about what version of Ceph they want to deploy. So that's what this design doc discusses, is how we can do that, basically by putting the version of Ceph, the Ceph container, in the cluster CRD. And kind of reminds me of the design we had originally, actually a year ago, when the version was there, but that's when we put it all in the operator version, since we only had one container. But now we're saying we actually have two containers that we would support. This will, admittedly, it'll be more complex to support. The versioning will be challenging, but at the same time, it's it looks like it's a necessary thing to do. I was talking with Sage last week, and that this design doc came out of that. I just saw some comments on. I need to respond to those. But if there's any other feedback on it or thoughts on this, it'd be great to have some feedback. Any initial reactions or comments?
I see that there has been a fair amount of discussion about it already. Has there been many dissenting opinions on it, or has it all been fairly supportive and collaborative towards the goal specified, for the design?
Right. I wouldn't describe it as dissenting. It's just, what about this or this, and comments on the complexity, or how can we make sure we only make sure we're supporting the version of upgrades that we really should. Because if you went from Luminous all the way up to the O release, that's probably too big of an upgrade at once, etc. So define really what we're going to support with the upgrades.
Right. Yeah. It immediately introduces a lot more complexity than just a single, version that the operator manages, and everything's coupled together there. And, this introduces much more complexity about mismatched versions and, blocking, operations or scenarios that we don't want to support and all that sort of stuff. So it becomes much more complicated.
Yeah.
What's a quick question about what the user experience would be for, invalid sort of scenarios? Is that, because there's not great user feedback when something goes wrong, that's just kind of because Kubernetes controllers, their reconcile loop is an asynchronous approach. You have to kind of go look at the logs and stuff. You don't get immediate feedback to your actions necessarily. Is that kind of what you foresee here when somebody does something wrong? They have to go dig in the logs, or?
Well, I mean, this is a place where we need to use the CRD status so that they can see, well, what version is actually using. For example, we could have a version field that says this is what Rook is actually running in the version of Ceph, and they would have to go, they could go look at that and see, oh, that's not the same as what I put in the CRD, so let's go look at the logs and see why Rook didn't pick it up. And yeah, the error feedback is a challenge with CRDs. But I think with the status, it could give the first clue about why Rook ignored the version change.
And another question I had too is just if we obviously don't want to get too into the design right now, but if we could do it really quickly, of what's the general image approach? Like if we're going to have different versions of Ceph versus Rook, does that make, the Ceph image is completely different, like completely distinct now, like for all the daemons that'll all be running the Ceph image as opposed to a Rook image?
Yeah, well, the Rook image, it still needs the Ceph tools in it, the client
Right.
tools. It doesn't need the daemons. I haven't looked at what it will look like to slim that down. Does that mean we just pull in the same image, or what?
Can I say something?
Mm-hmm.
Can't you use the Ceph image and in an init container just copy the Rook binaries from a Rook image?
So
you're left with a Ceph image, but with Rook binaries.
Yeah, what we have today really is the Ceph image plus Rook binaries.
Yeah, but that's it's not at runtime. It's somehow hard coded, let's say.
Right.
So I was thinking, for example, you want to start a Mon or an OSD. Start it, have an init container which copies the Rook binaries to a folder, like empty dir or something. And then have the Ceph image specified in the operator CRD or whatever, and just run it from there. And
right.
You're left with the image with Ceph and Rook.
Yeah, the init containers, so all the daemons will run init containers that run Rook in them. And then the daemon containers would only have the Ceph image. You're right about that. At build time, the way it's designed right now, we would want to build whatever containers we need so that at runtime we don't need to move the binaries around or copy them into the container, for example. So that's a design or a build time, a design decision that we've made.
But that was when Rook and Ceph were coupled.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to decouple them.
Yeah, well,
it was just an idea.
Yeah, there's a Ceph, so the Ceph build now, would build the Ceph image.
No, because I built an image with the Rook 081 and the Ceph mimic. I added a comment.
Yeah. You experimented with that. Yeah, and that was that was cool.
Because I wanted to get the dashboard working. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so the Rook build then will actually produce the image that we need then.
Yeah, so I know how it works now, but it was just an idea of how it could work with decoupling Rook from Ceph.
Mm-hmm.
Hey Travis, I just skimmed through it. I have some thoughts about it. I've got a crazy week coming up, but I'll try to get to this one. And there's a couple other design issues that you requested my review, so I'll try to get to them hopefully early next week or late this week.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. Thanks. Yeah, this one I'd like all the maintainers to comment on.
In general, I think it would be amazing for the Rook operator to handle upgrades.
Yeah.
So.
I'll also add a comment. So
Yeah, thank you, Bud.
okay.
Yeah, it sounds great. So then, okay, I've gone ahead and opened up the next pull request. Travis, you said that you wanted some attention to or discussion on.
Yeah, so this would be a comment on upgrades first. So related to this PR with the Mon deployments, I wanted to get some upgrade testing because the Mons now will be changing from a replica set to a deployment. And the only
Per mon, right?
per Mon, yep.
Yeah, okay.
So the only sane way to do an upgrade will be is if we automate it. And so I have in this PR automated that upgrade. So the Mons will be replaced appropriately. That means now the Mons and
Sorry to
OSD,
interrupt you. But what's the general approach for that? Because you want to maintain the running mons state, or do you kind of roll them out, like replace one by one and get rid of the old ones?
So one by one, it will, when it's looking at the Mons, it always looks at them one by one anyway. So it'll look at one, it'll say, oh, the old replica set exists. I'll delete it and create the new deployment with basically the same pod spec. And so new Mon starts up.
Oh, and does that bring up a new mon so that the monitor identity gets replaced?
No, it'll be the same ID. It'll just it's the same pod spec on the same node.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's just replacing the intent is to replace the replica set with the deployment.
And so the new one, the mon comes up. It's the same. It's using the same data off of our Rook or whatever, and in a new pod, and that is now parented by a deployment instead. And then it gets into quorum, and then that mon is good, and we can move on to the next one.
That's right.
Got it. Okay, cool.
It just looks like a mon restart.
Got it. And this will be automated by the operator.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. We're making this is another like big step of automating upgrades, which is awesome.
Yeah, and so as part of that upgrade, okay, we need testing for upgrade. So I was going to add it to this PR, but it got too big, and I'm separating it out into another PR soon, where an integration test that does automated upgrade from 081 to master.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty much just working out some kinks, but that integration test is almost there, just so people are aware, and we can add to it as changes come in related to upgrades.
And that will go in first into master independently before the implementation for this here.
I could actually split it that way.
What were you saying then? Because I thought you said you split it out. How are you saying you split it out?
I mean, I've got in my upgrade PR integration test branch right now. I've got two commits. One that's just refactoring, and then another one which adds the specific upgrade test for that also checks the mons after the upgrade. So I need this PR first so I can check that in my upgrade test.
So you're saying this functionality here would be merged first before you have the overall integration test for testing upgrade. Is that?
Yes. So I can just the integration test can immediately test this change.
Yeah, I think Travis breaking out the CI and integration testing piece sounds really like the way to proceed here, because I mean that's useful in general even without the changes to the upgrade path, right?
Right. So are you saying that breaking out the integration test is a good thing, or I'm not sure?
It is a good thing. Yes, I'm saying if you take the changes to add more integration testing for upgrades to master first, that would be really helpful. Even in testing 08 to 09 or 07 to 08 or all the upgrade scenarios.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll see if I can get that in, and then really it will just be a small change to the upgrade test to test this second. That's true. All right. Yeah, I'll do that.
And there was discussion about breaking out the Rook binary from images and just relying on Ceph images that have entry points that are the daemons. That also seems like it would help the upgrade story and versioning story that you're kind of envisioning here.
Yeah, exactly. I did open an issue on that, and it's linked from the Ceph versioning design discussion. 2003, it looks like.
Okay.
Go up in the main content of the issue, Jared. I saw it. So there's a link to 2003 there. So that issue says, yeah, all daemons should start with an daemon starts without Rook in it.
And are you thinking you'd do that before the automated upgrades?
I think this can be done independently of the upgrades. Because the upgrade
might be a prereq for it, is what I'm trying to say.
With the init container, I'm not sure I've seen it as a prereq, but it may be a good thing to do first too. Let me think about that. Because with the mons, at least right now, with that upgrade path, since we're changing from a replica set to deployment, it's so disruptive that the init container probably wouldn't be much change there. It's just another change to the pod spec, which then the upgrade would take care of later when the pod spec changes. Anyway, yeah, that's a good question. I'll look at that. But this, 2003 is a prereq for the Ceph versioning, splitting that out.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of changes here. So, yep, looking forward to feedback.
Yeah, from my initial reaction to a lot of them is that they're good. They're changes I think that are a good step towards reliability and stability for the Ceph orchestration, and Ceph support in Rook. So I think those are all really good steps.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we'll follow up offline then.
All right. So I think that was everything that was written down in the agenda document. Is there anything else that someone has on their mind that they would like to share that was not in the agenda document?
Yes, I'm just pasting a link to the chat. Okay, so currently I'm using an image of an NFS Ganesha server from my repo. So it will be good if it's pushed on Rook's repo.
What is that base image exactly, Rohan?
So I will paste another link.
Yeah, today I think we only have images pushed to Rook that are produced by our build process. So this was, I'm assuming, your manual build that you pushed.
Yes, so I pasted another link. Yeah, so this I'm using this Docker file to build the NFS Ganesha base image. So it takes quite a while to get built up. So it will be good if it's pushed on Rook's repo.
So I would think that we would.
Can you?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Bassam.
I was going to say, can you add that whole image into Rook?
Yeah. I think why would that not be just part of the build process in here, in building our NFS image? Okay. I don't think it doesn't need to be a from. It doesn't need to be something that we've already published that we're using as with the from instruction. I think we'd just be building the whole thing that we need, the right image that we need from this this directory.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I will add that.
Yeah, and we'll follow up on that in that PR too.
Okay.
And
Right.
the result of that Docker build is pushed to the Rook repo now, or do we have
No,
that
no.
NFS image pushed?
Well, it
Or
won't be until until it's in master. We don't
when it's in master?
push any artifacts from PRs at all.
Yeah. I was just trying to remember if I saw it in the PR being published.
Yeah, if it's part of the image list to get built, it's also automatically part of the image list to be published as well. That's all derived from the same list.
Oh, that's right. Cool.
Yep.
Okay.
And so that's the step that we'll have to take too, is create the NFS, the repositories on Docker Hub so that the NFS artifacts container image artifacts will have a place to be published to. All right. Anything else anybody wants to talk about?
Oh, actually, there's one more. So with the, John, you're on the call, right? Just around the policy we have for partial management of the object and file CRDs, where we don't want to do pool management because the manager will do that. Do you want to bring that up?
Yeah. So the latest version of that pull request has a sort of simplified approach where we just have a only manage daemons Boolean for the file system and the object store specs. So I think we're sort of past the detail discussion and back to the sort of more fundamental question of, are folks comfortable with having this change in Rook? Notably Bassam.
I haven't looked at the latest comments since we had this chat. Let me take a look, John. Sorry, I've been kind of busy, but let me take a look at where things are, and I'll respond.
Thanks. There's probably in future there's going to be some relation as well between whether Rook is creating the pools and the sort of auto-managing pgnum and that kind of thing. I know you guys have an open issue for doing a better job of guessing pgnums, but we also have a whole bunch of new code that's going into the manager in Nautilus for doing that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
as Ceph gets smarter at doing that stuff, some of the lines might need to be reconsidered a little bit.
And John, my opinion on that is that, in general, that's something that the Ceph platform is doing itself to, keep things healthy and manage things effectively on its own. That's a great place for that to live. Like Rook doesn't do any, rebalancing right now, that Ceph does that amazingly on its own. So if Ceph gets better at things like, managing placement groups and that kind of thing, then I'm all for that going in the Ceph platform, written by the Ceph experts. That's great.
And just to the other piece of context here is I don't think there's any kind of resistance to having Rook partially manage Ceph, say only mons and OSDs and not pools, or any kind of partial management. I think would be interesting. It's just those are. In general, the community around Kubernetes, has not really defined patterns for that. So I think we're kind of trying to figure out what the best way of doing that, and that's part of the issue here. It's the how. It's not the why we want to do this.
And I think as we figure out a way to express it as sort of, here's a policy,
Right.
that approaching it with that question seemed to make it fall out a little cleaner after the discussion on this specific issue, at least for me. So I feel better about it.
Cool. I would also
I'll
just
definitely
really emphasize that we're not really going to have a lot of cases like this. It's just the distinction between using Kubernetes to run daemons versus using like Rook code to manage logical Ceph resources. It's from my point of view, it's not about like ever more granular distinctions is just really just that one thing.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Alrighty, then I will go ahead and stop the recording now.